Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Mindset. Today we get to chat with Aaron Wolpoff, who is a marketing strategist and expert in a lot of different ways. And I've read his bio, which you can find in the show notes. And it seems to me that he is every bit as much of an expert as his bio says he is. But we're going to find out over the next hour or so for sure. We'll not pick on him too much. But nevertheless, it's fun to be here, Aaron. So I want to welcome you to Unstoppable Mindset. I'm glad you're here, and we're glad that we get a chance to do this.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. You're going to grill me for an hour, huh?
Oh, sure. Why not? You're used to it. You're a marketing expert.
That's what we do. Yeah, we're always under scrutiny for one thing or another.
I remember, I think it was back in, was it 82 or 1982 or 1984 when they had the big Tylenol incident. You remember that? Do you know about that?
I do. Yeah, there's a Netflix documentary happening right now.
Is there? Well,
Yeah.
so a bottle of Tylenol was, for those who don't know, contaminated and someone died from it. But the manufacturer of Tylenol, the CEO, the next day just got right out in front of it and said what they were going to do about removing all Tylenol from the shelves until they could all be examined and so on. Just did a number of things. It was a wonderful case, it seemed to me, for how to deal with a crisis when it came up. And I find that all too many companies and organizations don't necessarily know how to do that, do they?
No, and a lot of times they operate in crisis mode. That's the default, and no one likes to be around that. So that's, I guess, step one is dealing. Deal with a crisis when it comes up, but make sure that your day to day is not crisis fire as much as possible.
But know how to deal with a crisis, which is kind of the issue, and that's what business continuity, of course, is really all about. I spoke at the Business Continuity Institute hybrid conference in London last October, and as one of the people who asked me to come and speak explained, business continuity people are the what if people that are always looking at how do we deal with any kind of an emergency that comes up in an organization, knowing full well that nobody's really going to listen to them until there's really an emergency. And then, of course, they're indispensable, but the rest of the time, they're not.
For sure. Yeah. It's definitely, good. You bring up a good point about knowing how to deal with a crisis, because you run a business for long enough. You have a company, no matter how big, eventually something bad's going to happen. And it's Tylenol is pre-internet, or,
Yeah.
Good while ago, they had time to formulate a response and craft it and do a well-presented public reassurance. Nowadays, you'd have 5 seconds before you have to get something out there.
Well, even so, the CEO did it within like a day or so, just immediately came out and said what was initially going to be done. Of course, there was a whole lot more to it, but still, he got right out in front of it and dealt with it in a calm way, which I think is really important for businesses to do. And I do find that so many don't, and they deal with so many different kinds of stressful, horrible things in the world.
For
And they create more than they really should about fear anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And now I think that Tylenol wasn't ultimately responsible. I haven't watched to the end, but if I remember correctly, but sometimes these crises that companies find themselves embroiled in are self-perpetuated.
Yeah, well, Tylenol wasn't responsible. Somebody did it. Somebody
Right.
put cyanide or something into a Tylenol bottle. So they weren't responsible, but they sure dealt with it, which is the important thing. And they're still with us.
Yeah, no, they dealt with it well. Their sales are great. Everyday household product, no one can dispute it. But what I was saying is with the instantaneousness of reach to your public, and to consumers and public at large, a lot of crises can be self-perpetuated. Like you tweet the wrong thing, or is it called a tweet anymore? I don't know. But you post something a little bit out of step with what people think about you or are thinking in general, and now all of a sudden you're in the middle of something that you didn't want to be in the middle of as a company.
Well, and I also notice that like the media will so often they hear something, they report it, and they haven't necessarily checked to see the facts behind it, only to find out within an hour or two that what they reported was wrong. And they help to sometimes promote the fear and promote the uncertainty rather than waiting a little bit until they get all the information reasonably correct. And of course, part of the problem is they say, well, but everybody else is going to report it. So each station says everybody else is going to report it. So we have to keep up. Well, I'm not so sure about that all the time.
Oh, that's very true too, Michael. Especially with, off-brand media outlets. It's been with AI. Like I'll be halfway through an article now, and I'll see something that's extremely generated, and I'll realize I've just wasted a whole bunch of time on a fake article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way too much. But even the mainstream media will report things very quickly to get it out there, but they don't necessarily have all the data right. And I understand you can't wait for days to deal with things, but you should wait at least a little bit to make sure you've got data enough to report in a cogent way, and it just doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who the watchkeepers of that are.
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist in that way by any means.
No, no, and
But
it isn't a conspiracy, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's again, I think it goes back to that the shortness of the cycle. Like again, Tylenol waited a day to respond back in the day, which is great. But now, would you have, if Tylenol didn't say anything for a day, if they were faced with a similar situation, people would vilify them and say, "Well, wait, you
Yeah.
waited a day to tell us something? We wanted it in the first 30 seconds."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that makes it more difficult. But I would hope that Tylenol would say, yeah, we waited a day because we were getting our facts together. 30 seconds is great in the media, but that doesn't work for reality. And in most cases, it doesn't. But yeah,
Right.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but the appetite in the 24-hour news cycle, people are hungry for more information. So it does push,
It
news
does.
outlets, media outlets into let's respond as quick as possible and figure out the facts along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for fun, why don't you tell us about sort of the early Aaron growing up and how you got to doing the sorts of things that you're doing now?
Well, I grew up in San Diego, California. I
Best
was,
weather in the country. I don't care what anyone says.
yeah, you can't really beat it.
No.
I don't think anyone's going to debate you on it. They call it the sunshine tax because things cost a lot out here, but
Yeah, they do.
you grow up here, you put up with it. But yeah, so grew up San Diego, college San Diego, life in San Diego. I've been elsewhere. I've traveled. I've seen some of the world. I like it. I've always wanted to come back, but I grew up really curious. I read a lot. I asked a lot of questions, and I also wanted to know. Well, I wanted to know a lot of things about a lot of things, and I also was really scared is the wrong word, but I looked up to adults when I was a kid, and I didn't
Hmm.
want to be put in a position where I was expected to know something that I didn't know.
Hmm.
So see, it led to times where I'd pretend like I knew, do you know what this is, right? And I'd pretend like I knew, and early career even. And then I'd get called out on something, and it was like a gut punch.
Whoops.
Like, I'm, but I'm supposed to know that.
What did your parents think of you being so curious as you were growing up?
They liked it, but I was quietly confident and curious. It's just I guess, an interesting mix.
Yeah.
Um, but no, they indulged it. They answered my questions. Like I said, I read a lot, so frequent trips to the library to read a lot about a lot of things. But I think, professionally, you take something that's kind of a grab bag, and what do I do with all these different interests? And um, when I started college undeclared, I realized, communications, marketing, you kind of can make a discipline out of a bunch of interests and call it something professional.
Where did you go to college?
I went to UCSD, so again,
UCSD.
here in San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just up the road from you at UC Irvine, so
Oh
two
yeah,
good
sure.
two good campuses.
They are. And UCSD, I was back recently. It's like a city now.
No.
Every time we go back, we see these kids, they're babies. They get food they have like a nice food court. There's parking, an abundance of parking. There's theaters. There's all the things we didn't have. Of course, we had some of it, but they just have like, well, if we had one of something or 50 parking spaces, they've got 5,000, and if we had, one food option, they got 35.
Yeah.
So they don't know how good they have it.
When I was at UC Irvine, I think we had 3,200 undergraduates. It wasn't huge. It was in that area. Now, I think there's 31,000 or 32,000 undergrads.
Oh, wow.
And as one of my former physics professors joked, he's retired, but I got to meet him. I was there last year. I was inducted as an alumni member of Phi Beta Kappa. And so we were talking, and he said, "You know what UCI really stands for, don't you?" Well, I didn't. I said, "What?" And he said, "Under construction indefinitely." UCI. Oh, and they're always building.
Sure.
And that started when I was there, but they are always building, and it's just an amazing place today with so many students and graduate students, undergrads, and faculty, and it's an amazing place. I think I'd have a little bit more of a challenge of learning where everything is, although I could do it. If I had to go back, I could do it.
Yeah, UCI is nice, but I
Yeah, I
think
like
you could say that about any of the UCs. They're
Yeah.
constantly under development, and that's the old one, that's the old area, and I'm like, oh, I went to school in the old area.
Yeah, yeah, I know the old area. I remember Central Park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So you ended up majoring in marketing and communications?
Yeah, so I undergrad in communications. They have a really nice business school now that they did not have at the time. So I predated that, but I probably would have ended up there. I got out with a very, not knocking the school. It's a great, wonderful school. I got out with a very theoretical based degree. So I knew a lot about communications from a theory based perspective. I knew about brain cognition. I took maybe one quarter of practical, use it professionally. It was like a video, like a video production course. So I learned hands-on one quarter out of my entire academic career. But a lot of it was learning, not necessarily applied, but just a lot of theory. And I started school at 17, and I got out just shortly after my 21st birthday. So I don't know what my hurry was, but there I was with a lot of theory, some internships, but not a ton of a professional experience, and trying to figure it out in the work world at that point.
Did you get a graduate degree or just undergrad?
I did. I went back, so I did it for almost 5 years in financial marketing, and then and I wore a suit and tie to work every day. Which I don't think anyone does anymore.
No,
And
not much.
I'm sounding like like I'm from the 30s. I'm not that old, but no, seriously, we to work at the headquarters of a international credit union,
Yeah.
I wore a suit.
Yeah.
No, after 4.5 years there, I went back to graduate school up in the Bay Area, and that's when I got my master's in marketing. And
Oh, where'd you go in the Bay Area?
San Francisco State University.
Okay.
Yeah, really nice school. It's got
Yeah.
one of the biggest international MBA programs in the country, I think. And got to live in that city for a couple of years.
We lived in Novato, so North Bay, for 12 years from 2002 to the end of June 2014. Yeah, I like that area. That's the weather isn't San Diego's. That area is still a really nice area to live as well. And again, it is pretty expensive, but still.
It is. Yeah, it's not San Diego weather. A beautiful day
No.
there is like nothing else. But when we first got there, I said, I want to live by the beach. That's what I know. And we got out to the beach, which is like at the end of the outer sunset, and it's in the 40s streets, and it feels like the end of the universe.
Yeah.
It just it just like feels apocalyptic. And I said, I don't want to live by the beach anymore. But no, it was a great learning experience. Getting an MBA, I always say it's kind of like backpack or a toolkit you walk around with.
Hmm.
Because that's all application. Everything that I learned about theory,
You got to
there's
put
some
into practice.
you got to put into practice, and I was really glad that I got to do that, and like I said, live in the Bay for a couple years. I'd always wanted to.
Yeah, well, that's a nice area to live. If you've got to live somewhere, that is one of the nicer places. So I'm glad you got that opportunity, and having done it, as I said, for 12 years, I appreciate it too. And
Yeah.
there's so much to offer there.
The only problem I had was it was in between the two .com bubbles.
Mm,
So literally nothing was happening. The good side was that the apartment I was living in went for something like $5,500 before I got there, and then everything dropped. The bottom dropped out, and I was able to squeak by and afford living in the city. But you go for seeking your fortune, and there's I had just missed it, and then I left, and then it just came back. So I was there during a lull.
so you're the one, huh? Okay.
I didn't do it.
Oh,
Just the way
did
the
you
timing worked out.
did you then go back to San Diego?
I did, yeah. So I'd met my wife here. We moved up to the Bay together. And when we were debating when I graduated, we were thinking, do we want to drive, an hour and a half to Silicon Valley or somewhere further out just to stay in the area? Or do we want to go back to where we know and like and start a life there? And like you said at the beginning, San Diego's not a bad place to be. So
No.
as it was never a fallback, but as a place to, come back home to, I welcomed it.
And so what did you do when you came back to San Diego?
So my best friend from childhood was starting as a photography company, still does. And it was starting, like a sister company as an agency to serve the photography company, which was growing really fast. And then also, like picking up clients and building a book out of. So he said, I see you're applying for jobs, and I know that you're getting some offers and things, but just say no to all of them and come work with me. And at the time it was running out of it was like a loft of an apartment.
Hmm.
But it grew to a small staff, and then a bigger staff, and spun off on its own. And so that's what I did right out of grad school. I said no to a few things and said, there's a lot worse fates than, spending your workday with your best friend
Yeah.
and growing a company out.
And so what exactly did you do for them?
So it was like, we'll call it a boutique creative agency.
Hmm.
It was around the time of, I'm making myself sound so old. It was, so there was Flash technology, like web banners were made with Flash. It had movement and
Adobe Flash,
animation,
and yeah.
Adobe Flash. Yeah. So companies were making these web banners and what you call interactive. We got a proficiency of making full website experiences with Flash, which not a lot of companies were doing. So because of that, it led to some really interesting opportunities and clients, and being able to take on a capability, a proficiency that, for a time is a differentiator. Say, you could have a web banner in an old website, or you could have a Flash interactive website where you take your users on an experience with music and all the things that seem so dated now.
Well, and of course, unfortunately, a lot of that content wasn't very accessible. So some of us didn't really get access to a lot of it. And I don't remember whether Adobe really worked to make Flash all that accessible. They dealt with other things, but I'm not sure that Flash ever really was.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think so. What we would wind up doing is making parallel websites. But then mobile became a thing, and then you'd make a third version of a website,
Right.
and it just got tedious. And really, it's when the iPhone came out, it Flash
Yeah.
got stopped in its tracks. Like it was like a week. And then ActionScript, which is the language that it runs on, and all the capabilities and proficiencies, just there was no use for it anymore.
Well, and the iPhone came out, as you said, and one of the things that happened fairly early on was that because they were going to be sued, Apple agreed to make the iDevices accessible. And they did something that hadn't really been done up to that time. They set the trend for it. They built accessibility into the operating systems. And they built the ability to have accessibility into the operating systems. The one thing that I wish that Apple would do even a little bit more of than they do today, although it's better than it used to be, is I wish they would mandate or require people who are going to put apps in the App Store, for example, to make sure that the apps are accessible. They have guidelines, they have all sorts of information about how to do it, but they don't really require it. And so you can still get inaccessible apps, which is unfortunate.
That is, yeah. And like you said, with Flash, an entire, ecosystem had limited to no
Yeah.
accessibility. So,
And making additional on another website, yeah, a lot of places did that, but they weren't totally equal because they would make enough of the website. Well, they would make the website have enough content to be able to do things, but they didn't have everything that they had on the graphical or Flash website. And so it was definitely there, but it wasn't really truly equal, which is unfortunate. And so
it
now it's
is.
a lot better.
Yeah, it is. No, and I hate to say it, but if it came down to limited time, limited budget, limited everything, you want to make something that is usable and efficient. But no, I mean, I can't speak for all developers, but
Right.
no, it would be hard. You'd be hard pressed to create an equally parallel experience with full
Yeah.
accessibility at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, you would. And it is a lot better. And there's still stuff that needs to be done, but I think over time AI is going to help some of that. And it is already.
Yeah.
But it isn't perfect yet, but even some graphics and so on can be described by AI. And we're seeing things improve over kind of what they were. So we're making progress, which is good.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy about that. And with AI, and AI can go through and parse your code and build in all, everything that needs to happen. There's a lot less excuse for not making something as accessible as it can be.
Yeah, but people still ignore it to a large degree. Still only about 3% of all websites really have taken the time to put some level of accessibility into them. So there's still a lot to be done. And it's just not that magical or that hard, but it's mostly, I think, education. People don't know. They don't know that it can be done. They don't think about it being done, or they don't do it initially. And so then it becomes a lot more expensive to do later on because you got to go back and redo it all.
Right. Yeah. Anytime you have to do something retroactive or rebuild, you're starting from not a great place.
So, how long did you work with your friend?
A really long time because I did the studio, and then I wound up keeping that alive, but going over to the photography side. The company really grew. Had a team of staff photographers, had a team of like a network of photographers, and was doing quite an abundance of events every year, weddings and corporate and all types of things. So all in, I was with the company till, gosh, I want to say like 2014 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what did you go off and do?
So then I worked for an agency. So I got started with creative and, rewinding, I got started with financial marketing with the suit and tie, but then I went into creative, and I've tried pretty much every aspect of marketing. I hadn't done marketing automation and email sequences and CRMs and outreach and those types of things. So that was the agency I worked for. That was their specialization, which I like to a degree, but
Yeah.
it's not my home base.
Yeah.
There's people that love and breathe automation. I like interjecting some type of personal aspect into the what you're putting out there. And I have to wrestle with that as AI keeps growing in prominence. Like, where's the place for the human creative? But I did that for a little while, and then I've been on my own for the past 6 or 7 years.
So what is it you do today exactly?
So we'll call it a fractional CMO or a fractional marketing advisor. So I come in and help companies grow their marketing and figure themselves out. I've worked with large companies. I've kind of gone back to early stage startups and tech companies. I just find that they're doing a lot more interesting things right
Hmm.
now. With the market the way it is, they're taking more chances and they're moving faster. I like to move pretty quick, so that's where my head's at. Um, and I'm doing more, we'll call them like co-entrepreneurial ventures with my clients, as opposed to just a pure agency service model, which is interesting. And I got my own podcast.
There
So
you go.
yeah, it's
What's your
enough to
podcast called?
enough to keep you busy. It's called "We Fixed It. You're Welcome."
There you go. And it seems to me, if my memory hasn't failed me, even though I don't take one of those memory or brain supplements, we were on it not too long ago talking about Uber, which
Yeah,
is which was fun.
we had you on there. I don't know which episode will drop first, this one or the one you were on, but we sure enjoyed having you on there.
Well, it was fun. Well, we'll have to do more of it, and I think it'd be fun too. But so you own your own business then today.
I do. Yeah, it's called Double Zebra.
Now, how did you come up with that name?
It's two basic elements. So basic black and white, something unremarkable, but if you can take it and multiply it or repeat it, then you're onto something interesting.
Lots of stripes.
Yeah, lots of stripes. And it's always fun when I talk to someone in the UK or Australia, or then they say zebra, or
Zebra, right?
I get to hear it the way they say it. That's fun. Occasionally I get double zero. People
Yeah.
will misname it, and I think, double zero. That's whose company is that? But
Has anybody called it double Z yet?
no, that's a new one.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Maybe we've given somebody the idea now.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so I'm curious. You obviously do a lot to analyze and help people and critique in corporate mishaps. Have you ever seen a particular business mistake that you really admire and just really love its audacity?
Where it came out wrong, but I liked it
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
Oh man. Um, let's see.
Or one maybe where they learned from their mistake and fixed it, but still.
Yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, that's a good one. I like bold moves, even if they're wrong, as long as they don't, they're not harmful to
Right.
people. Um, I don't know. Let's go. I'm making myself old. Let's go back to Crystal Pepsi. I don't know
There
if you
you
remember
go.
that, but that was just such a fun idea at the time. We're the new generation, and this is the 90s, and everything's new now, and we're going to take the color out of soda. We're going to take it and just make it what but a little unfamiliar, right?
Right.
And it's Crystal Pepsi, and the ads were cool, and it was just very of the moment. Now that moment didn't last very long,
No.
and the public didn't hold on to it very long. But there's, it was it let you question in a good way what you thought about what is even a Pepsi. And it worked. They brought it back like for a very short time, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, just because people
Yeah.
had a nostalgia for it. But yeah, big, bold. We're confident this is the new. Everyone's going to be talking about this for a long time, and we're going to put a huge budget behind it. Crystal Pepsi, and it kind of
It
left.
didn't.
It didn't, but
So
I liked it.
so why is that? That is clearly somebody had to put a lot of effort into the concept and must have gotten some sort of message that it would be very successful, but then it wasn't.
Yeah, you have for something like that, you have to get buy-in at so many levels.
Hmm.
you have an agency saying, well, this is the right thing to do. You have senior leadership saying, nah, I don't know, let's pull back. Whenever an agency gets away with something and spends a bunch of client money, and it's just audacious, and I can't believe they did it. I know how many levels of buy-in they had to get
Yeah.
to say, trust me. And a lot of times it works, if they do something that just no one else had thought of or wasn't willing to do. And then you see that they got through all those levels of bureaucracy and they were able to pull it off. When it works, I love it. When it doesn't work, I love it.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they did it.
Yeah, you
You
got to admire that.
gotta admire it.
They pulled it off.
Yeah.
My favorite is still ranch flavored Fritos. They disappeared, and I've never understood why. I loved ranch flavored Fritos, and we had them in New Jersey and so on. And then we got, I think, out to California, but by that time they had started to fade away, and I still have never understood why, since people love ranch food so much.
That's a good one. I don't know that I know those because does that one actually fill a market need? If there's Doritos, there's the ranch. I don't know if were they different.
There were Fritos, but they did have ranch. They were ranch flavored, and I thought they were great.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how
Oh
that one
well,
didn't hit because I think they have chili flavor. They have
yeah.
regular. Do they have anything else? Honey barbecue? I don't know.
I don't know, but I do still like regular, but I love ranch flavored the best. Now I heard last week that Honey Nut Cheerios are going away. General Mills is getting rid of Honey Nut Cheerios.
No. Is that real?
That's what I heard on the news.
Okay. I believe you, but I'll look it up anyway.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know why after so many years they would, but there have been other examples of cereals and so on that were around for a while and left. And well, Captain Crunch was one, and I'm not sure if Lucky Charms are still around. And then there was one called Twinkles, and
Mm. I know all those except Twinkles, but if you asked me, I would say Honey Nut Cheerios. I would say their sales are better than Cheerios, or at least,
I would think so.
yeah, at least a good portfolio
Yeah,
company,
well, who
product.
knows?
Who knows? But I do know that Gen Z and millennials eat cereal a lot less than us older folks because it takes work to put milk and cereal into a bowl, and it's not pre-made.
Yeah,
So maybe it's got to do with, changing eating habits and consumer preferences.
must be.
Yeah.
And there are not enough of us older, more experienced people to counteract that. But well, we'll see.
Yeah.
As long as I don't get rid of the formula, because it may come back.
Yeah. Well, now, yeah, exactly. Between nostalgia and reboots and remakes, and nothing's gone forever. Everything comes back eventually.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
In all the work that you've done, have you ever had to completely rethink and remake your approach and do something different?
Yeah, well, there's been times where I've been on uncharted territory. I worked with an EV company before EVs were a thing, and it was actually going head to head with Tesla.
Mm,
But the thing, they keep trying to bring it back and crowdsourcing it and all that stuff. But at the time, it was like I said, it was like, which is going to make it first, this company or Tesla?
yeah.
But this one looks like it looks and feels like a spaceship. It's got like space. It's really really unique. So the one that is more like a family car won out, and probably rightly so. But there was no consumer understanding of, not let alone a preference like there is now for an EV. And what do? I have to plug it in somewhere and all those things. So I had to rethink, what there's no playbook for that yet. I guess I have to kind of work on it. And they were only in prototyping at the point where we came in and had to launch this, teaser campaign for it and build up awareness and demand for this thing that existed on a computer at the time.
What? Why is Tesla so successful?
Because they spent a bunch of money.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah, they were playing the long game. They could outspend competitors. They've got the unique distribution model, and they kind of, like I said, retrained consumers into how you buy a car, why you buy a car, and I think politics aside, people love their Teslas. You don't. My understanding is you don't have to do a whole lot once you buy it, um, and they like I said they had the money to throw at it that they could wait it out and wait out that when you do anything with retraining consumers or behavior change or telling them, you know, your old car is bad, this new one's good. That's the most, we'll call it costly
Yeah.
and difficult forms of marketing is retraining behavior. But they had the money to ride it out, and their product's great. You know, again, I'm not a Tesla enthusiast, but it looks good. People love it. They run great from everything that I know. But so did a lot of other
Yeah.
EV companies. So I think they just had the confidence in what they were doing to, again, throw money at it and wait, be patient, and people
Well,
did come around.
there again, the Tesla is another example of not nearly as accessible as it should be. And I recognize that I'm not going to be the primary driver of a Tesla today, although I have driven a Tesla down Interstate 15 about 15 miles. The driver was in the car, but I did it for about 15 miles going down I-15 and fully appreciate what autonomous vehicles will be able to do. We're way too much still on the cusp, and I think that people who just poo-poo them are missing it. But I also know we're not there yet. But the day is going to come when there's going to be a lot more reliability, a lot less potential for accidents. But the thing that I find, like with the Tesla from a passenger standpoint, is I can't do any of the things that a sighted passenger can do. I can't, unless it's changed in the last couple of years. I can't manipulate the radio. I can't do the other things that passengers might do in the Tesla. And I should
Mm.
be able to do that. And of all the vehicles where they ought to have access and could, the Tesla would be one. And they could do it even still using touchscreens. I mean, the iPhone, for example, is all touchscreen, but Apple was very creative about creating a mechanism to allow a person to not need to look at the screen using VoiceOver, the screen reader on the iPhone, but having a new set of gestures that were created that work with VoiceOver so that I could interact with that screen just as well as you can.
That's interesting that you say that. You know, Apple was working on a car for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know to a fact, but I bet they were thinking through accessibility and building that into every turn, or at least planning to.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure they were. And
yeah.
the reality is it isn't that magical to do. It would be simple for the Teslas and other vehicles to do it. But, you know, we're not there mentally. And that's of course the whole issue is that we just societally don't tend to really look at accessibility like we should. My view of say the Apple, the iPhone, still is that they could be marketing the screen reader software that I use, which is built into the system already. They could do some things to market that a whole lot more than they already do for sighted people. Your iPhone rings. You have to tap it a lot of times to be able to answer it. Why can't they create a mode when you're in a vehicle where a lot more of that is verbally spoken and handled through voice output from the phone and voice input from you without ever having to look at or interact with the screen?
I bet you're right. Yeah, it's just another app at that point.
Well, and it's what I do. I mean, it's the way
Right.
I operate with it. So I just think that they could be more creative. There's so many examples of things that begin in one way and alter themselves or become altered. The typewriter, for example, was originally developed for a blind countess to be able to communicate with her lover without her husband finding out. Her husband wasn't very attentive to her anyway, but the point is that the I think the lover created the this device where she could actually sit down and type a letter and seal it and give it to a maid or someone to give to her friend, and that's how the typewriter. Other people had created some examples, but the typewriter from her was probably the thing that most led to what we have today.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
There
let
you
me,
go.
Michael, let me ask you. So I was in LA not too long ago, and they have, driverless vehicles are not the
Right.
norm yet, but I saw them around the city. What do you
Yep.
think about driverless vehicles in terms of accessibility or otherwise?
Well, again, so so the most basic challenge that fortunately they haven't really pushed, which is great, is okay, you're driving along in an autonomous vehicle and you lose connection or whatever. How are you going to be able to pull it off to the side of the road? Now, some people have talked about saying that there has to be a law that only sighted people could. A sighted person has to be in the vehicle. The reality is the technology has already been developed to allow a blind person to get behind the wheel of a car and have enough information to be able to drive that vehicle just as well, or nearly as well as a sighted person. But I think for this, from the standpoint of autonomousness, I'm all for it. I think we're going to continue to see it. It's going to continue to get better. It is getting better daily. So I haven't ridden in a fully autonomous vehicle, but I do believe that those vehicles need to make sure, or the manufacturers need to make sure that they really do put accessibility into it. I should be able to give the vehicle all the instructions and get all the information that any sighted person would get from the vehicle. And the technology absolutely exists to do that today. So I think we will continue to see that. And I think it will get better all the way around. I don't know whether, well, I think that actually there have been examples of blind people who've gotten into an autonomous vehicle where there wasn't a sighted person, and they've been able to function with it pretty well. So I don't see why it should be a problem at all. And it's only going to get better.
Yeah, for sure. And I keep thinking, accessibility would be a priority in autonomous vehicles, but I keep learning from you. You were on our show and our discussions that the priorities are not always in line and not always where they necessarily should be.
Well, and again, there are reasons for it. And while I might not like it, I understand it. And that is, a lot of it is education, and a lot of it is awareness. Most schools that teach people how to code to develop websites don't spend a lot of time dealing with accessibility, even though putting all the codes in and creating accessible websites is not a magically difficult thing to do, but it's an awareness issue. And so, yeah, we're just going to have to continue to fight the fight and work toward getting people to be more aware of why it's necessary. And in reality, I do believe that there is a lot of truth to the fact that making things more accessible for me will help other people as well. Because by having not I won't, well, voice input certainly in a vehicle, but voice output and so on, and a way for me to accessibly be able to input information into an autonomous vehicle to have it take me where I want to go is only going to help everyone else as well. A lot of the things that I need would benefit sighted people so well, so much.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, AI assistants and voice input and all those things are universally loved and accepted now.
Yeah, it's getting better. The unemployment rate is still very high among, for example, employable blind people, because all too many people still think blind people can't work, even though they can. So it's all based on prejudice rather than reality. And we're just going to have to continue to work to try to deal with the issues. I wrote an article a couple of years ago. One of the things where we're constantly identified in the world is we're blind or visually impaired. And the problem with visually impaired is visually we're not different simply because we don't see, and impaired we are not. And we're getting people slowly to switch to blind and low vision. Deaf people and hard of hearing people did that years ago. If you tell a deaf person they're hearing impaired, they're liable to deck you on the spot.
Yeah.
And blind people haven't progressed to that point, but it's getting there. And the reality is, blind and low vision is a much more appropriate terminology to use. And it's not equating us to not having eyesight by saying we're impaired. So it's an ongoing process, and all we can do is continue to work at it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that you do. Like I said, education and retraining is some, we'll call it marketing or call it, just the way people should behave. But it's hard. It's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things to do.
But we're making progress, and we'll continue to do that. And I think over time we'll see things improve. It may not happen as quickly as we'd like, but I also believe that I and other people who are blind do need to be educators. We need to teach people. We need to be patient enough to do that. And I see so often articles written about me who talk about how my guide dog led me out of the World Trade Center. The guide dog doesn't lead anybody anywhere. That's not the job of the dog. The dog's job is to make sure that we walk safely. It's my job to know where to go and how to get there. So a guide dog guides and will make sure that we walk safely, but I'm the one that has to tell the dog step by step where I want the dog to go. And that story is really the crux of what I talk about many times when I travel and speak to talk to the public about what happened in the World Trade Center, because I spent a lot of time learning what I needed to do in order to escape safely. And on September 11th, not ever having anticipated that we would need that kind of information, but still preparing for it, the mindset kicked in, and it all worked.
Mm. Well, you and I talked about Uber on my show when you came on, and we gave them a little ding, and figured out some stuff for them. What in terms of accessibility and just general corporate citizenship, what's a company that, let's give them call them out for a good reason. What's a company that's doing a good job in your eyes, in your mind, for accessibility? Maybe an unexpected one.
Well, as I mentioned before, I think Apple is doing a lot of good things. I think Microsoft is doing some good. I think they could do better than they are in some ways, but they're working at it. I wish Google would put a little bit more emphasis on making its interface more more usable. To you really use the like with Google Docs and so on, you have to learn a whole lot of different commands to make part of that system work, rather than it being as straightforward as it should be. There's some new companies coming up. There's a new company called InnoSearch.ai, that was primarily designed at this point for blind and low vision people. And the idea behind InnoSearch is to have a way of dealing with e-commerce and getting people to be able to get help shopping and so on. So they actually have a phone number. I think it's 855 shop GPT, and you can go in and you can talk to the bot and tell it what you want, and it can help fill up a shopping cart. It's using artificial intelligence, but it understands really well. I have yet to hear it tell me, I don't understand what you want. Sometimes it gives me a lot of things that more than I'm searching for. So there's work that needs to be done, but InnoSearch is really a very clever company that is spending a lot of time working to make sure that everything that it does to make a shopping experience enjoyable is also making sure that it's accessible.
Oh, that's really interesting. With my podcast and just in general, I spend a lot of time critiquing companies and not taking them to task, but figuring out how to make them better. But I always like the opportunity to say, you did something well, like even quietly, or people are finding you because of a certain something you took it upon yourselves to do and figure out.
There's an audio editor, and we use it some on Unstoppable Mindset, called Reaper. And Reaper is a really great digital audio workstation product. And there is a whole series of scripts that have been written that make Reaper incredibly accessible as an audio editing tool. It's really great. It's about one of the most accessible products that I think I have seen, just because they've done so well with it, which is kind of cool.
Oh, very nice. Okay, good.
And it's not even expensive.
You gave me two to look to pay attention to and track along with.
Yeah, they're fun.
Very
So
nice.
what do people assume about you that isn't true or that you don't think is true?
People say I'm quiet at times. Guess going back to childhood, but it's situational. There's times where I don't have to be the loudest person in the room or be the one to talk the most. I can hang back and observe. But I would not categorize myself as quiet. Like I said, it's environmental, but no, I've got plenty to say. You just have to engage me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I'm trying to remember on Shark Tank. What's Mark's last name?
Cuban.
Cuban. It's interesting to watch Mark on Shark Tank. I don't know whether he's really a quiet person normally, but I see when I watch Shark Tank, the other guys like Mr. Wonderful with Kevin are talking all the time, and Mark just sits back and doesn't say anything for the longest period of time, and then he drops a bomb and bids and wins.
Right.
He's just really clever about the way he does it. I think there's a lot to be said for not just having to speak up every single time, but rather really thinking things through. And he clearly does that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to appreciate that. And I think that's part of the reason that, when I came time to do a podcast, I did a panel show, because I'm surrounded by, bright, interesting, articulate people. You included as coming on with us. And I don't have to fill every second. I can intake information and think for a second and then maybe have a response.
Well, and I think that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's the way it really ought to be.
Yeah, if you got to fill an hour by yourself, you're always on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know when I travel to speak, I figure that when I land somewhere, I'm on until I leave again. So I
Right.
always enjoy reading books, especially going and coming on airplanes. And then I can be on the whole time I am wherever I have to be. And then when I get on the airplane to come home, I can relax again.
No, I like that. And I know you keynote. I think I'd rather moderate. I'll say something when I have something to say and let
Yeah.
other people talk for a while. But
Well,
you have a great story and I'm glad you're getting it out there.
Well, and if anybody needs a keynote speaker, just saying for everybody listening, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at michaelhi@accessibility.com or speaker@michaelhingson.com. Always looking for speaking engagements. Then we got that one in.
Good. I'm glad.
But for you, is there a podcast episode that you haven't done that you really want to do that just seems to be eluding you?
There were a couple that got away. I wanted to do one about Sesame Street, because it was looking like it was going to be without a home, and that's such a hallmark of my childhood and so many.
Yeah.
I think they worked out a deal, which is probably what I was going to propose with. It's like a co-production deal with Netflix. So it seems like they're safe for the foreseeable future, but, what was the other? I think there's at least one or two more where maybe the guests didn't line up, or the timeliness didn't work. I was going to have someone connected to Big Lots. Remember Big Lots?
Yes.
I think they're still around to some degree, but
I think they are.
come on and tell me their story because they've been on the brink of extinction for a little while.
Yeah.
So it's usually either a timing thing with the guest or the news cycle has just maybe gone on and moved past us. But yeah,
I know people wrote off Red Lobster for a while, but they're still around.
they're still around. That would be a good one. Yeah, their endless shrimp didn't do them any favors.
No, that didn't help a whole lot. No, but it's
but
good.
The interesting is companies, even the ones we've done already, they're still 6 months later, 12, it hasn't been even a full year of our show yet, but in a year, I bet we could revisit them all over again and they're still going to find themselves in, I don't know, hot water, but some kind of controversy for one reason or another. And we'll try to help them out again.
Have you seen any successes from the podcast episodes where a company did listen to you and has made some changes?
I don't know that I can correlate one to one. We know that they
Hmm.
listen. We can look at the metrics and where the listens are coming from. Especially with LinkedIn, gives you some engagement and tells you which companies are paying attention. So we know that they are and they have. Now, whether they took that and implemented it, we have a disclaimer saying, "Don't do it." Or don't, we're not there to give you unfiltered legal advice. Don't hold us accountable for anything we say. But if we said something good and you like it, do it. So, I
Yeah.
don't know to a T. If they have, then we probably given away billions of dollars worth of fixes. But, I don't know the correlation between those who have listened and those who have acted on something that we might have, alluded to or said outright. But it has, we've been, the times that we take it really seriously, we've predicted some things that have come to pass.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly had a great career and you've done a lot of interesting things. If you had to suddenly change careers and do something entirely different from what you're doing, what would it be?
Oh man, my family laughs at me, but I think it would be a furniture salesman.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know why. There's something about it's just enough repetition and just enough creativity, I guess, where people come in, you tell them, they tell you their story, you get to know them, and then you say, oh, well, this sofa would be amazing, and not one with endless varieties, not one with two models, somewhere in between. Yeah, I think that would be, it keeps you on your feet. Furniture salesman.
Well, if you get too bored, Mathis Homes and Bob's Furniture are probably looking for people.
Yeah, I could probably do that at night if I wanted to.
Yeah. What advice do you give to people who are just starting out, or what kinds of things would you give to people in the way of ideas and thoughts?
So I've done a lot of mentoring. I've done a lot of one-on-one calls. I always work with an organization. They told me I did 100 plus calls. I always tell people to create their own momentum. So, you can apply for things, you can stand in line, you can wait, or you can come up with your own idea and test it out and say, I'm doing this. Who wants in? And the minute you have an idea, people are interested. Oh,
Yeah.
you're onto something. Let me see what that's all about. I want to be one of the three that you're looking for. So I tell them create their own momentum, try to flip the power dynamic. So if you're asking for a job, how do you get the person that you're asking to want something from you? And do things take on things that are within your control, right?
Right. Well, if you had to go back and tell the younger Aaron something from years ago, what would you give him in the way of advice?
Um, be more vulnerable. Don't pretend you know everything.
There you go.
and and you don't need to know everything. You need to know what
Mm-mm.
you know, and then get a little better and get a little better.
One of the things that I constantly tell people who I hire as salespeople is you can be a student at least for a year. Don't hesitate to ask your customers questions because they're not out to get you. They want you to succeed. And if you interact with your customers and you're willing to learn from them, they're willing to teach and you'll learn so much that you never would have thought you would learn. I just think that's such a great concept.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah. As soon as I started saying to clients, they would throw out an industry term. As soon as I said, I don't know what that is. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah.
And they did, and the world didn't fall apart, and I didn't look like the idiot that I thought I would. When we went on with our day, yeah, that whole protective barrier that I worked so hard to keep up as a facade, I didn't have to do it, and it was so freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. Well, this has been fun. We've been doing it for an hour. Can you believe it?
Oh, hey, that was a quick hour.
I know. It was a lot of fun. Well, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you all for listening. Please give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening or watching. We really appreciate it. We value your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts on our episode today, and I'm sure Aaron would like that as well. And I'll give you an email address in a moment. But Aaron, if people want to reach out to you and maybe use your services, how do they do that?
Yeah, so 2 ways. You can check me out at Double Zebra, Zebra, doublezebra.com. And the podcast I encourage you to check out too, wefixeditpod.com, wefixeditpod.com.
There you go. So reach out to Aaron and get marketing stuff done. And again, thank you all. My email address, if you'd like to talk to us, is Michael, Michaelhi, at accessibe.com. And if you know anyone else who you think ought to be a guest on our podcast, we'd love it if you'd give us an introduction. We're always looking for people, so please do. And again, Aaron, I just want to thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, it was great. Thanks for having me, Michael.